America. This is Ramon Rocha greeting you from the MAI headquarters in Chicago. Please use that box on the lower left-hand corner of your screen for your questions. We will have about 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A towards the end of our session. Editing is such a vital component of the writing and publishing process. MAI recognizes the need to provide editors with helpful tools of the trade. Our objective in this webinar is to introduce the web-based open-source Wiki software as a good tool for editors to consider for their copy editing and collaborating tasks. And this tool could help editors do their work in a better and faster way. We are privileged to have Ms. Jeremy Taylor as our resource leader for today. Jeremy is managing editor of fiction at Tyndale House Publishers, a leading and reputable global Christian publishing house. Jeremy has served as trainer in several countries. I think he attended 3 Lit Worlds already, Jeremy. So we're very delighted to have you, Jeremy.
Just 2 so far.
Thank you for serving in this webinar. Please take it away.
Okay, well, hello everyone. It's morning here in Chicago, so I'll say good morning, but I know that it's different times of day for many of you, so I'm glad you're with us, and I really hope that this webinar will be informational and helpful as we talk about collaborative editing in an online environment. And I just want to lay out kind of my goals for this next half hour or 40 minutes or so. There's a PowerPoint presentation that I'm going to work through. And by the way, Ramon selected this picture of me, which I think was taken in Romania. And it's maybe not my very favorite picture of myself, but anyway, thanks for that, Ramon. What I want to do is work kind of quickly through the PowerPoint and give some overview information. And then I actually want to spend most of our time looking at the Tyndale House Publishers Wiki so that you can see in action what it actually looks like. And then we'll have plenty of time for questions. And I think you each received an email with a link to a web page where you can actually set up your own wiki if you want to experiment with some of this. So we'll take a quick look at that as well, make sure that that is clear in terms of how you can set up a wiki for doing some of your own experimenting. So let's go ahead and dive in here. You see my contact information here on the screen, jeremytaylor@tyndale.com. You can reach me even at jt@tyndale.com. And so if you have questions or follow-ups or you want additional information after this webinar, then feel free to contact me, or you can contact Ramon at the MAI office and he'll forward any questions along to me. So I imagine that we won't be able to cover everything that you are interested in today, but hopefully we can at least provide sort of an overview. So let's go ahead and get started. And Ramon, jump in here if anything that I'm doing technology-wise isn't working.
Yes.
Okay. As we get started just talking about collaborative editing as a principle or as a concept, and this PowerPoint was created for a live seminar, so there's some more interactive things that probably aren't going to work too well in a webinar setting, but so I'll move fairly quickly through some of this stuff. By the way, as you have questions, feel free to go ahead and type them into the chat window, and then we'll be collecting those and we'll address any questions that you have toward the end of our time. So here's a couple of questions for us to be thinking about as we get started. How might collaboration be useful and important in editing? And then what are some difficulties or obstacles to collaboration? This is something that we've thought a lot about at Tyndale over the years because we work with quite a few freelance editors and copy editors who are in a variety of different locations. We have a Spanish publishing program with editors who live in Mexico or South America. And so we need a way to be able to work together in real time across large distances. We can't all be together working in the office at the same time necessarily. So we needed to find a way to be collaborative in our editing and copy editing. And some of the difficulties that we face, probably the biggest difficulty is just the software limitations that exist. And there's many, many more tools today than there were even just a few years ago. When you think back over the last 8 or 9 or 10 years, it's really pretty amazing how the world has changed. And when you think about the fact that the iPhone didn't even exist until 2007, well, that's only 9 years ago. And just think about how the world has completely changed in that amount of time. The iPad was introduced in 2010. The Amazon Kindle was released in 2008, I think. So anyway, there's many more tools today that exist than there used to, but it's still important to find the right tool for your environment. So that's what I want to talk about today. This is an image of a workflow that is sort of a traditional workflow for us at Tyndale, and you can see it's fairly complex and fairly, I would call it redundant. If you look at it starting in the upper left, the editor has a manuscript and is working back and forth with the author, and then when the editing is finished, then the editor would pass the manuscript off to a copy editing coordinator. It's important to copy edit manuscripts as well as edit them. And then the copy editing coordinator would work with a number of different copy editors, often freelancers, to all read the manuscript and make sure that it's completely free of errors. And then all of those readers would give the manuscript back to the copy editing coordinator, who would collate all the corrections and changes, input everything into the computer file, and then pass it back to the editor with any queries that exist. Finally, the editor, after answering queries, passes everything back again to the copy editing coordinator to shepherd it through the production and composition process. So this is a fairly redundant workflow with different people doing the same work at the same time, but doubling up their efforts and having to pass things back and forth in circles a number of times before the project is complete. So this is really not an effective or efficient workflow, but this is the way it worked at Tyndale for many, many years. So we needed to find something that was a little bit faster, less redundant, that didn't rely on paper as much, that we weren't printing out multiple copies of manuscripts. One of the problems with this workflow was transparency. If there was ever a question about why a certain change was made at any point in the process, there was really no way to go back and figure out who had made that change or why. And so we needed to find a way of working together that would give us more transparency, more flexibility, and allow us to be more collaborative. So back in 2007, the same year that the iPhone was released, Tyndale published a book by Tate Dungy, whose team, the Indianapolis Colts, had just won the Super Bowl that year. And we needed to get this book done very quickly and efficiently. And so that's when we first started experimenting with wikis as a way to work together to get editing and copy editing done. So what does a better workflow look like? Well, it needs to be faster, less redundant, online, and versioned. It's important for it to be versioned because basically what that means is that at any point you can go back and see every change that was made to a manuscript and who made it. And oftentimes they will even include a comment about why they made that particular change. So there's complete flexibility and transparency in the process. So this is what we were shooting for. Just some definitions talking about collaborative editing. You can see here on your screen. Collaborative editing is editing and copy editing in a team environment in a manner that allows for speedy, non-redundant, high-quality work. It's an online environment that maximizes technology use for optimal results and allows team members to build on each other's work, provide quality checks, and have access to legacy files and manuscript versions. One of my favorite things about collaborative editing and copy editing is that rather than having multiple people all doing the same work at the same time, repeating each other's efforts, you can have a linear workflow where different editors and copy editors build on work that's already been done. So rather than having a single copy of a manuscript that multiple people are reading and duplicating efforts, you can have one person read the first chapter and then pass it off to the next person to read while the first person moves on to chapter 2, etc. I was sharing with Ramon earlier about why we selected Wikis as the best medium for us to do collaborative editing and copy editing. And hopefully you're all at least familiar with the concept of a wiki. If you've ever used Wikipedia, then you kind of know at least the basic general idea. But it's a website that is created and edited by multiple users. So a traditional website is just content that's available online, and anyone can log in and see that content. And more recently, you can actually interact with content, and there's database-driven software so that you can see things happening in real time. But a wiki is different because you can actually make changes to the content, and anybody can do it. So it's not just the webmaster that has access to log in and make changes, but any user can create new pages or edit existing pages within the wiki website. So that opens up lots of great opportunities for collaborative editing and copy editing, and so that's why we decided to go with Wikis as our software tool of choice. There are other tools, and we'll talk very briefly about that right at the end, but the reason we decided to go with Wikis is because anyone can change any page, because it's online and browser-based, so you can access a wiki from anywhere. You can use any device. You can do it with your phone. You can do it with your iPad. You can do it with your desktop computer. And it's super powerful in terms of being a collaborative editing tool. So that's why we went this direction, and I want to show you a little more about what Wikis can do here. Wikis provide a means for users to collaborate to accomplish complex tasks in new and simple ways. And that's pretty much the definition of collaborative editing. It's a very complex task, and if we can do it in a new and simple way, then we're in shape. All right, I'm going to quickly move through some examples of the reason why wikis are sort of a better tool for lots of different things. So the encyclopedia, obviously, for years and years, the encyclopedia was just a hardcover book that had a limited amount of information in it with a small decision-making body who would decide what information made it into the encyclopedia. Well, a collaborative method is an open format with a worldwide decision-making body and a virtually unlimited result. And of course, we're talking about Wikipedia, and probably every one of you has used Wikipedia, and many of you probably use it every day. This is an online encyclopedia that anyone in the world can access, and anyone in the world can make changes to. And you might think that that's a recipe for disaster if anyone can change the facts about a particular topic, but as we've seen over the years since Wikipedia has been around, when you have enough users, it's a self-policing site, and it's remarkably accurate. Another example would be travel. For many years, the only way that you could really get a good deal on travel was through a travel agency. Today, that's no longer the case. You can use personal travel software, set up your own trips on websites. I'm going to be traveling to Turkey in 3 days, and I arranged that whole trip myself using a travel website. Did not have to include a travel agent. But there's another way to do it, which is collaborative, and you can get unlimited information about any destination in the world from people who live there or have been there and have all kinds of advice. And so a site like Wikitravel or many other examples of sites where you can get information from other users because they can edit their own comments on the web page. So wikis are useful for that sort of thing as well. Dictionary, of course, Wiktionary is the online wiki version of the dictionary today. So the best wikis are easy to use, well laid out, simple to understand, and intuitive for any user in any language. And if you've ever used Wikipedia, then you know it's very simple to understand, it's well laid out, and you can, the edit button is right there on the screen, you can make the changes that you feel that you need to make to any page in Wikipedia. Here's an example of a wiki page. This is from Wiktionary.com, and you can see it's text-based, pretty much as simple as it gets. There's a list of links along the left-hand side of the page. The main body of the text is right in the middle of the page. There's some extra stuff, links and things at the top. There's the edit button right there at the top right. It's very simple. It's very intuitive, easy to understand. Here is a page from Wikitravel. This is the page about Singapore, and again, you can see it's a similar layout. Links along the left, main body of the text in the middle. Some pictures on this one. It's not totally text-based. Here is the Wikipedia article on Singapore. Again, similar format, links along the left, main body of the text in the middle, and some other images and maps and things on this page as well. So you can see all these wikis are very similar, and the reason for that is because they're all based on the same software, which is Mediawiki. And if you haven't ever heard of Mediawiki, that's the software that drives Wikipedia and those other wikis that we just looked at. Mediawiki is free software. It's open source, so you can make any changes that you want to it. And because it's open source, there's a massive worldwide community of people who are constantly making tweaks and adjustments, improving it, writing plugins and extra complementary software to help it. And so it's a great option if you're using wikis. Mediawiki, in my opinion, is the best way to go. Mediawiki.org is the website, and you can go there and read all about it. So this is just some of the reasons why we use wikis at Tyndale. Collaboration instead of redundancy. As I mentioned earlier, you can have multiple users building on each other's work rather than repeating each other's work. Exhaustive versioning. For any manuscript that Tyndale publishes, we can now go back and see every change that was made to it from the time the author submitted it until the time it came out in the bookstores. And you can see every change, every the person who made every change, the exact date and time that that change was made, and the reason why they made it if they happen to include a comment. It's cloud-based, so it's all online, and you can access it from anywhere. You can do it from the office. You can access it from home. I'll be working on our wiki when I'm in Turkey next week. Ease of communication, time-saving, online work environment. It's cross-platform because it's web-based. You can use it with PC, you can use it with Mac, you can use it with Android or other mobile software as well. And it's easy to use. There's a low learning curve. It takes us about a half an hour to train our new employees in how to use a wiki. And the reason for that, the biggest reason for that is because most people have already used wikis. They've used Wikipedia, or they've used their college's wiki, or whatever the case may be. Most people have used wikis, or at least have been exposed to them, so they're simple to learn, and anyone can do it. All right, I'm going to skip through these next couple slides because this is showing the Tyndale wiki, and I actually want to switch over to a live screen and show you that in real time here in just a second. So I'm going to skip these slides. Okay, and we'll come back to this. All right, hopefully this is going to work. I'm going to switch over to sharing my screen, and we're going to hope for the best here. And Ramon, jump in and shout at me if anything is not working. But you should be looking at the home page of Tyndale's copy editing wiki. And I know there's a little bit of a audio delay here.
Yes, we're seeing it now.
Excellent. Okay, so this is the wiki that every Tyndale editor and copy editor works with just about every day. And I want to walk you through what some of the elements here are on this page. The first thing to notice is that this is very similar to Wikipedia, or those other wikis that we looked at briefly. And again, that's because it is being driven by the Mediawiki software. So it actually is the same as the Wikipedia engine. And Wikipedia is extremely powerful. Mediawiki is extremely powerful, and we've been able to harness all that power and functionality for our editing and copy editing efforts at Tyndale. So it's pretty exciting, and when you look at this web page, you'll see why I continue to be excited about it even after 9 years. We started this back in 2007, as I mentioned, and it's still going strong, and we still use it pretty much every day. So the first thing to look at is along the left-hand side of the screen, there's a list of links, and these are collapsible, and we've broken them down by team. We've got a number of different editorial teams, and each team has their own little section of the wiki. So I work on the fiction team, and this is our section of the wiki. These are the active links for projects that are happening right now. So this project called Maybe It's You, that's being copy edited today. And so this link appears here in the list. The other teams are working on other books, and their active projects appear here as well. There are other links here also in addition to the active projects. We've got style resources. Our in-house style guide is here. Our scripture permissions policy is here. There's other tools as well. Everything is linked to it right from the sidebar, and this is going to be active and visible every page that we go to. You'll see that. All right, then you can see up in the top left is our little logo, and you can always click on the logo to go back to the main page, sort of standard for a website. Then in the middle, this is all the main content, and all of the headings, which appear in green here, show up in a table of contents at the top of the page. So this is all automated, extremely intuitive, easy to use, and very helpful. All right, let's take a quick look at the actual web page for this active project. We'll look at this project called Maybe It's You, and this is the home page for the project. Nothing spectacular to look at here. It's just a list of all the different chapters. But if we click on a chapter, then you'll see this is the actual text of the book. And I'm not going to let you read it because this book hasn't been published yet, so you'll have to wait for that to come out. But you can see here the text here, and it's being worked on. So this is a real project in real time. Now here's something interesting. If you see this text here, First Lady, has been highlighted, and this is one of the great features of a wiki, is that you can interact with the text and ask questions right in the text of the manuscript. So here one of the copy editors has highlighted this phrase, First Lady, and that tells me that they have a question about that. So if I go back to the top and I click on this discussion link here at the top left, I'll click the discussion link, and that's going to bring up the discussion page for this chapter. And every single chapter, every single page on a wiki has its own discussion page where you can ask questions or put facts or interact with other editors about that chapter. So here you can see someone had a query about First Lady, and their question was, Webster's prefers to lowercase this, but don't we usually capitalize it? And then the editor came back with her comment saying, yeah, it's capped per CMS 8.32. CMS, that's Chicago Manual Style. So here you can see an example of using the discussion page for this chapter to ask a question and then get an answer. And then down here, the copy editor, anytime that they looked up a fact that occurred in this chapter, they just made a mention of that here on the discussion page as well. And that helps because now other copy editors know that they don't have to look up those things. It's already been done. I'll click back to the page and show you another great feature of the wiki, and that's the versioning. I can click over here on View History in the upper right, and that's going to show me every change that's been made to this document. So we can see when the document was first uploaded by the editor, Sarah Rishi, and then there were some changes made by Danica King, one of the copy editors, and then more changes made by Aaron Smith, one of the copy editors. And we can go back and look at the differences between each of these versions of the page. And we're just talking about this particular page, which is chapter 1 of Maybe It's You. So if I select Sarah's version and Danica's version and then click Compare Selected Revisions, that's going to show me all the changes that Danica made to the manuscript, to this chapter. Here's the differences. It's in 2 columns, and the stuff on the left is the original version, and the stuff on the right shows the revised version with all the changes that have been made. One thing to point out is that wikis use a modified version of a very simple HTML tagging. And if you've never used HTML, this is a great time to start because it's very simple and easy to learn and very, very powerful. And the reason wikis use HTML tags instead of interface sort of like Microsoft Word where everything is what you see is what you get, is because tagging provides a more hands-on way to really interact with the text and the different elements of the text, and that's why wikis use HTML. There are third-party tools available that you can interact even with Mediawiki in a more what you see is what you get environment similar to Microsoft Word. We don't use that because we like to be able to control the individual text elements. But just looking at the changes that were made here, you can see, I'll zoom in a little bit here just in case this is hard to see. So here, Danica made this term thwack italicized by adding these little marks here or surrounding that word. That makes it ital. She added a query. We already saw the First Lady query. Here she added a hyphen between drop and dead. Down a little bit lower, she took away accent on the word decor, which isn't needed. She added some non-breaking spaces and some ellipses, and that's all the changes that she made. So we can instantly see, just at a glance, all the changes that Danica made. We can see that she did that on May 9th, and she did it at 2:41 in the afternoon. Then we can click on Newer Edit, and that's going to take us to the more recent revisions that Aaron made. And again, the previous version is on the left, and the new version is on the right. So here, if we scroll down, we can see Aaron added a couple non-breaking spaces that Danica hadn't put in. She added a hyphen in date-worthy. She took out the hyphen in drop dead, so she's overruling a change that Danica had made earlier. And that's the latest version of this chapter. So those are all the changes that have been made to this point. Let's go back to the page.
Jeremy,
so here's
if I may interrupt.
The chapter as it currently exists. Absolutely.
Yes. Who makes the final decision? The copy editors are making changes. Is it you, the head of the fiction team, that makes the final decision?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The final decision always rests with the editor, and the editor has not yet reviewed this page, but when she does, then she will review every change that's been made and make a decision. If there's any questions about anything, then it's the editor's decision to finalize one way or the other. So yeah, great question. It's always the editor's responsibility to review the changes that the copy editors made and then have the final say on any of those changes. If I scroll back up to the top here, I'm going to click on this link here, which is going to take us back to the home page for this manuscript, and I'll click on Copy Editing Schedule. Because you can create pages and edit pages within the wiki so easily, we use the wiki to keep track of the work that we're doing as well as doing the actual work. So if I click the copy editing schedule, you'll be able to see who is working on this project and at what stage they've reached. So right here you can see this is just a simple table with every single chapter and subsection of every chapter listed. They're active links, so you can jump to any chapter right from here. And then we've got two copy editors and an editor who are going to be reviewing this manuscript. So right now the two copy editors have gotten through the first section of chapter 3, and one of the copy editors is all the way down to chapter 12, and the editor has not yet gone in and made her final checks. So when she does that, then it'll be final, and once they get all the way down to the end of this book, then these boxes will all fill in with initials, and then it'll be ready to send to the typesetter. Go back to the home page for this document. All right, now what if we need to make it an editorial change? I'll just click on a random chapter here, chapter 29. Go ahead, I'll wait.
Yeah, Ian, hi Ian. He's asking who has the access to this page. Open to anyone or just the editorial staff? Because it is online, he said.
Yeah, that's very important. That's correct. It is online. And if you go to cewiki.tyndale.com right now, you'll be able to see the website. It won't ever show up in any search engines because it's a subdomain of tyndale.com. So you won't be able to find it. If you Google CEWiki, you won't find it. But you can go right now to cewiki.tyndale.com in your browser and see the login page. But that's as far as you'll be able to go. Unless you have a username and password, you won't be able to log in. So it's available online because it's a website, but it's only actually accessible to anyone who has a username and password. And I am the one who sets up accounts for new users. In Wikipedia and some other public wikis, any user can set up their own account with their own password and have access to edit anything. For this software, because it's our manuscripts, it's our books, we can't have just anybody logging in to read and make changes, so we password protect it, and that's an option that Mediawiki gives you. It's very powerful encryption, and it's highly secure. So unless you have a username and password and an account set up for you by me, then you don't have access and you can't get in and make those changes. So yeah, that's a great question, Ian, and super important because you have to keep your content secure, obviously. And so even though we've got this on the internet and available for our users to interact with and edit, it's only actually accessible if you have a username and account. Actually, let me log out here and we'll just take a look at the login screen. So now any page that I click on, it's going to say you must log in to view other pages. So if I need to log in, I've got my username and password. I'll tell it to remember me and then log in. It's an important issue, so I hope that answers that that question for you.
And Michael, hi Michael from Sierra Leone. He's asking, how can the material be guided so that it cannot be distorted? I think you've answered that. The editor has the final say.
Yeah, it's guarded from just anyone by the password, username and password protection, and then it's guarded within the Tyndale team or the team, whoever's working on this manuscript. It's guarded because everyone can see every change that's made. So that's the reason why it's important to us that there be versioning involved, because we can go back and see for every page of every book that we work on, we can see all changes that have been made. It is the editor's responsibility to review all those changes. The editor should be reviewing changes regardless, and this just makes it easier because it's all online and in a very simple and intuitive format. So the editor can quickly go through, see all the changes that have been made, approve them, and then it's ready to go on to the next stage. I'm going to go back to the Maybe It's You page, and since I clicked on chapter 29 earlier, I'll go back to chapter 29. I'll click on section 1. If it's a longer chapter, then the editor might break it down into smaller sections, and that's the case here. So this is section 1 of chapter 29 of the book Maybe It's You. And you can see that reflected in the title of the page here. So we've got some pretty straightforward body text in this chapter, nothing too complicated. But what if we need to make a correction? Well, it's as simple as clicking the Edit button. And here we are in the text. And this is the underlying active text. And you can see some HTML tags in here. And if you have no idea what those mean, actually you can ignore them. They're really not that important for you at this stage. But the main point that I want to get across is that you can now make changes to the text of the manuscript, and it's going to appear in real time. So let's make a change. I'll make a change right up at the top of the page, and we'll say instead of chapter 29, we want to make this chapter 30. Someone miscounted somewhere along the line, and maybe the character's name isn't Paul, but it's Ian. Okay, then we can click Preview to see what the changes are going to look like. And there you can see the change that I made. It's now chapter 30, and it's now Ian instead of the other name. Then I can click Changes to see a real-time representation of the changes that I just made in that same format, old version on the left, new version on the right. Now these changes haven't actually been made to the file yet until I click Publish, which I'm not going to do because I don't actually want to make these changes. But if I clicked Publish, then they would be saved in the real version of the manuscript, and that would be the version that the copy editors see when they get to this chapter. So instead I'm going to click Cancel, and that'll take us back to the page, and you can see those changes have been undone. But that is the process by which we really do make all of our copy editing changes in the manuscript, is right here online in the website in real time, so that each editor and copy editor can see what the other people have done. And again, you can always view history and see every change that's been made. Here, the only change that's been made is that the page was created by Sarah, and that was back on May the 2nd at 2:46 in the afternoon. So again, one of the reasons why Mediawiki is so powerful is because you can see every change that's been made. Okay, I want to take a look at an older manuscript so that we can see more changes. This is the fiction home page, and this has some links to different fiction team resources on the left, and then any current or upcoming projects in the middle. And right now you can see the only current project is Maybe It's You. And then we've got some completed projects on the right, quite a few. So let's take a quick look at a completed project. We'll look at a book called The Occupied. And this is a similar homepage for this manuscript as we saw for Maybe It's You. It's just a list of the different chapters. There's a copy editing schedule, and if we click the copy editing schedule, we'll see that it's all filled in with initials. So this book is done. There's a couple author queries, it looks like, that are still remaining. But if we take a look at a chapter, we'll look at chapter 3, This is actually section 1 of chapter 3. And let's look at the history here and see how many changes have been made. All right, so you can see the page was created by Caleb, and then it was edited by Danica, and then edited by Amy, and then edited by Caleb again. Caleb is the editor, so he was going through and making any final changes. And again, we can look at all the changes that have been made to this document since it was created, and we can do that all at once if we want to compare the most recent version to the original version, or we can do it step by step. So let's just take a quick look at some of the changes that have been made to this document. This is, again, on the left, the old version, on the right, the new version. So these are changes that Danica made, same copy editor who worked on Maybe It's You. You can see she's changed some spellings. She changed the spelling of the sites to the correct spelling on the right. She added an E to the word blonde to make that the correct spelling for a girl's hair. She added a hyphen to Olympic-size pool, and then changed swimsuit from 2 words to the correct 1 word. She added a query about Jackass, the school name, and so that shows us that there's going to be something on the discussion page about that. And then she also flagged some closely repeated words. The word next here appears 3 times in close succession, so she tagged that for the editor to review. If we look at the next edit, we'll see the changes that the next copy editor, Amy, made to Danica's changes. Amy took out some commas, and it looks like that's all she did. And then if we look at the more recent change, this is Caleb, who has gone through and responded to queries by changing jackass to jackass. And if we look at the discussion page, then we'll see the back and forth about that. Okay. So the question from Danica was, is this a red flag? And if not, should it change to jackass 1 word, lowercase? And Caleb is saying, definitely should be, and I'll give some thought about whether we should use it at all. And I think probably he ended up deciding to leave it in because it's important in context. And we can see in the final version that it is, in fact, there. So this gives you hopefully an idea of the kinds of things that you can do with wikis. I mean, this is a book that is that's been published by Tyndale, but we can go through and see every change that was made to every chapter. We can see who made it, we can see when they made it, and then we can look at the discussion page to see if there's been any commentary about every single change. If we needed to go back and make an edit to this page, we can still do that just by clicking edit, and then we can see all of the text here in real time. So what if we wanted to change this to, instead of jackass, stupid head? Then we can preview and go down and see that that change was indeed made. Once again, I'm not going to actually make that change because I'm not the editor of this book, so I'm not going to do that. All right. Let's go back to the fiction homepage and just take another quick look at all the different projects that have been edited in this way. And this goes all the way back to this book, Tatler's Branch. So let's click on that and we can see when this was edited. And the easiest way to do that is to click on the copy editing schedule and then view the history of the copy editing schedule to see when the most recent change was made. So this goes all the way back to April of 2013. So 3 years ago that this particular book was edited. All right, one other thing that I want to do on the fiction homepage is add an upcoming project. So I'm going to edit the page. And actually, I'm going to cancel this, and we can actually edit just an individual section of the page. So I'll click that, and then if I add under the upcoming projects heading, if I add a new project, I'll add the returning, which is going to be our next project to be copy edited, and then preview it, and we can see that it has shown up there. Now, what if I actually want to edit the whole page so that I can see everything?
We have a question from Amor.
Here. This might look a little bit confusing because of all the HTML tags. Okay, go ahead. I'll wait.
Amor is asking, what if you want to include images and illustrations?
That's a great question. You can include images, and we don't have images in most of our fiction books, but you can include images in a wiki page, just like in Wikipedia. You can have images. You can do that in this wiki as well. You probably would not want to use the wiki for layout, so you wouldn't want this to be your software. I don't think that you'd be using for your final layout and typesetting. But if you have images that you need to include, you can do that just by creating a link to the image, and then it will appear. Now, the specifics of actually how to do all the wiki editing really are beyond the scope of what we're able to accomplish in this webinar. Maybe we can have another one sometime, or a private training session where we could look at how to actually do some of those things, like create tables, add images, etc. But we're not going to be able to do that here. What I will show you is if we scroll down under the upcoming projects heading, and I want to add the returning, and then I'll click on preview and we'll see it show up there. There it is. But it's not a link, and it doesn't have a nice little bullet in front of it. So let's go back to the text and fix that. We can add a bullet just by putting an asterisk. And then if we preview it, now we can see it's got that nice little bullet. So it's going to be part of a list. And then if we want to make it a link, all we have to do is add brackets around it, and that's going to make it into a link. And you can see now it's an active link. It's red instead of blue because that page doesn't actually exist yet. So I'm going to publish this and actually make that change for the first time. So this is our live page. And now when I click on this link, it's going to take me to a blank page because I haven't created any content. And now if I want to actually create the page, I'll preview it. You can see I added some italics. I'll go ahead and save page. That does the same thing as clicking publish. And now we've got our page. So now if we go back to the fiction homepage, we'll see that the link is blue because it's pointing to an existing page. Now we don't have any of the content uploaded yet, but when we do, then we'll have that same familiar list of all the chapters, the copy editing schedule, and our copy editors will be able to go to work. So that hasn't happened yet, but by this time next week, all that content will be uploaded and people will be starting to work on it. Let's go back to the fiction home page, and actually let's go back to the overall home page. So this really is the 20,000-foot overview of what the wiki does. And I wanted to show you the actual wiki and show you just the different sections of it so that you can get a sense for how manuscripts can actually be worked on in this kind of environment. I'm going to click back over to the presentation screen here. Hopefully you're seeing this. This goes back to the question that was just asked by Amor. Other things wikis can do. You can create tables. You can use footnotes and endnotes. You can use cascading style sheets. You can use HTML tags. You can store files. You can use XML documents to import and export text. It's virtually unlimited in terms of the customization because it's open source and it's free, so you can make any changes that you want to your wiki if you have access to the server. So it's extremely powerful and extremely flexible, and that's the reason why we use it, and we're so excited about it. All right, what do you need to get started with a wiki? Well, you need some basic technical know-how, or you at least need someone in your organization who's familiar enough with the concept of a website and web management to be able to set it up. If you have your own wiki server, it's an Apache server, and if you have your own website that you host out of your own organization, then you probably do have your own server, and you can create your own wiki by downloading the Mediawiki package from mediawiki.org and setting it up, and there's lots of documentation about how to do that. If you don't have your own server, or you don't have access to your own server, then you still have a couple of options. One is, if you have a website, if your company has a website, then it's got to be hosted by someone, and probably your web hosting company has a Mediawiki option. You might have to pay for it. It's cheap, a couple of dollars a month usually, but that's something that you should check with your web service provider and see whether they offer. If they don't, or if you don't have your own website, then you can still use a public web hosting, wiki hosting service. And the link that Ramon sent for ShoutWiki is a good example of a web hosting service. And if we need to, Ramon, maybe you can give me some guidance here. If we have time and if we need to do that, then I can show you how to even set up a wiki on ShoutWiki. It takes just a few minutes to do, and then you'll have your own wiki. Now, that's not a private held wiki. You can still password protect it, but it's not as secure as it would be if you had it on your own server. But it's still password protected. It's still high encryption with Mediawiki, and I would feel comfortable hosting my content on a site like that. Other things that might help, but you don't really need, are experience with other wikis, basic HTML knowledge. If you don't know any HTML, you might have a little trouble getting started, but HTML is so simple and so powerful, everyone should know it. Certainly every editor should know HTML, in my opinion, at least the basics. A working knowledge of PHP programming, that is only necessary if you're going to make really high-level changes to the wiki software itself. Because it's open source, you can do that if you know PHP. If you have back-end access to your own Apache server running PHP and SQL Server, then again, you can make any customized changes that you want, keep your data completely secure. And if you have a working knowledge of XML and scripting, then you can create your own import-export tools, or you can just as easily rely on other tools that already exist. So what do you really need? You need access to a wiki server. It can be your own, or it can be a public one like ShoutWiki. You need a wiki markup guide to learn about how to do italics and bold and links and things like that. That's all available online, very easy to find. Just Google Wikimedia Markup Guide. You need some curiosity and willingness to try something new. When we first started using wikis back in 2007, there were exactly 2 of us at Tyndale who were using it, and it was me and it was Dan Elliott, who many of you know. Over the years, more and more people have gotten curious about it, and once they have seen the power and the capability that the wiki has to offer, they've gotten excited about it. And now all of our copy editors use the wiki for their copy editing. Many of our editors use the wiki, and most of our projects make their way through the wiki at one stage or another. So it's our default copy editing method at this point. After 9 years, almost all of our projects go through it. And so what I've tried to do is give you just a quick overview of how the software works and the kinds of things you can use it for, just to give you a taste of how powerful it can be. Wikis are not the only collaboration software that's available. Back in 2007, it really was, but now it's not. There's other things available like Google Docs, Microsoft Enterprise. Dropbox has a feature where you can do live editing in Word documents within Dropbox, and I know there are others as well. I haven't, at Tyndale, we haven't used these that much. We've used Microsoft Enterprise. We have not used Google Docs. The reason why we've used Wikis instead of these other tools is because Wikis are, in my opinion, easier, more secure, because we have our own server, and if you have your own server, then you'll be able to control all of the back-end access and keep your data completely safe. Google Docs, I mean, it's safe. I don't think Google is going to be hacked into. No one's going to go in and steal your manuscript. Microsoft Enterprise, it's safe. So it's really not a security concern. For me, it's just an ease of use. I've been working with Wikis long enough that I feel like they're very intuitive, very easy. If you're more familiar, comfortable with Google Docs or Microsoft Enterprise, then great. There's lots of collaboration possibilities that you can look into with those. And I'm always eager to learn new things too. So if there's, if you've got a great collaboration method, then I want to hear about that. I'm always looking for new and improved ways to work together with my team. All right, that takes us to the end of the PowerPoint presentation. It's 8:56, so I'm not sure what time we're supposed to end here, Ramon, if we have just a couple minutes or if we can take some time for questions.
Yeah, we have some questions here. Michael, how do you make submission for editing? I think this is, you don't edit manuscripts that has not been approved by the editorial committee or the publishing committee, so you don't edit what you do not approve as manuscripts.
I think
what publishing house.
I think what Michael is maybe asking is how does the content get onto the to the wiki in the first place, and that's a good question. And we've got customized tools that we use within Microsoft Word to export manuscripts into XML, and then that can be uploaded to the wiki. Again, that's really beyond the scope of what I can show you in this webinar, but there are lots of tools that exist out there for moving content back and forth between Word and the wiki markup so that you can upload those. Good question.
I think as a similar question, you transfer Wiki into InDesign for layout, so export back and forth.
Yeah, the way that you do that is with XML, and InDesign uses XML, Microsoft Word uses XML, and Mediawiki uses XML. And XML is pretty standardized, so all these different softwares should be able to communicate with each other if you're using an XML format. The way that you actually do that is by exporting the wiki pages, and Mediawiki has a very powerful export process, so all it takes is a click of a button. You export an XML file, and then you can load that into Microsoft Word or into Adobe InDesign or whatever your other software is. You might need to make some tweaks to it depending on what software you're actually using. And again, there are tools that exist that can do that for you. Transform the XML into whatever format you need it to be for your next stage of the process, whether it's typesetting or uploading it to Amazon for an ebook or whatever the case may be. Ramon also mentioned that you wouldn't use the wiki to edit books that haven't been approved for publication. Actually, you could. You could have a section of a wiki that was for books that haven't been approved yet, and just so that they're there online ready for reviewers to read and make comments on and make recommendations. You could use a wiki for workflow tracking. You could set up a page where people go and check off that they've completed their stage of the project. We have a wiki that we use at Tyndale for Bible reading. to keep each other accountable for who's done their Bible reading for that day, just by seeing their initials there. So there, I mean, lots and lots and lots of different ways that you can use wikis. You can use it for editing and copy editing, but there's an unlimited other number of ways that you could use this software as well.
Oh.
Are there some other questions that we can look at?
We would like to acknowledge the whole editorial team of OMF Literature, headed by the publishing director, Ina Reyes. Thank you for joining us. Full force. Thank you, Eva from Australia. More question from the participants before we close. Wiki is really very powerful, and Tyndale has been using it for 8 years now, going 9 years. And I think other publishing houses should consider using it as well.
I'll just say that I know this has been a very fast run through with a lot of information, and probably creates more questions than answers at this point. I'd be happy to follow up with you if you want more information, maybe some more detail. I will say there's loads and loads of documentation online. Mediawiki has been around for a long time, and it's a global platform. So there are people who use Mediawiki in every country in the world that has the internet, which I think is every country in the world. And so you can find information about anything that you have questions about. But if you have questions for me,